Okay, so we got a basic looking one this morning. Let me just save this in the right folder. We're up to Mishlei 14:11, seemingly not having to do with our previous pasuk. So I'm not going to look back at the previous pasuk. Hold on, analysis notes. Okay, Beis Rishaim Yishamed ve'ohel Yesharim Yafriach.
The house of wickedness.
The not wickedness.
The house of wicked.
Rishaim.
Yeah, the house of wicked people.
Yes, the house of the wicked people. Yishamed
will be destroyed.
Yep, will be destroyed. The ohel Yesharim Yafriach.
And the tent of the upright.
Tent people. Of the upright people.
Will open up.
Close.
Flower.
Yeah, we'll flower. That's actually the one. Flower or blossom.
Did you look at the dictionary when you were doing this puzzle?
No.
Perach is a flower.
Perach,
yeah.
Right. I actually didn't know that. But.
Yeah. Okay. So Sadigon translates it. I just forgot to write this here. Sadigon does not translate it. So that's easy. Yeah. So Mitzus Tion says nothing. Sadigon says nothing. Targum. Let's see how well people know their. Isaac just came on. Let's see how well people know their Targum Onkelos here. I know this is not Onkelos, but Besa de Rashia Yishtetze Umashkana de Trite Mafriach. So Yishtetze lit up a bunch of things in my brain. Anyone recognize Yishtetze from Shai Mikra? Isaac?
Sounds familiar, but I don't remember what.
Okay, so Yishtetze is the translation of kares. Okay, so for example, I think this is the first instance of it. No, that's not the first instance. Oh, here we go. So in Bris Milah, v'arel zachar shaloimo es basar loso v'nichrosa hanefesh meha. That's what will be cut off. V'ishtete anasha hahum yame. Or he doesn't use it exclusively for kares, but this is definitely the go-to translation for kares. So he translates it as the house of the wicked will be cut off. Okay, and this is in Lashon kares. Umashkana detrite. And the dwelling. Yeah, dwelling is a good literal translation of mashkana, right? But mashkana is like most literal translation of like mishkan. Yeah. Right. So Mishkan is tabernacle, right? Yeah. I mean, that's how we usually translate, right? And the actually, I'm going to look up Jastro and just see how Jastro translates Mashkana. I mean, but I think what was the first thing you said? Dwelling. Yeah, I think dwelling is a good literal translation because it has the word shachin in it. But let me just look this up here. Mashkana is Mashkana.
Dwelling.
Is dwelling, or it can mean tent apparently. Yeah, I thought. I mean, I think. Let me just look. I just wanted to see.
Later.
Yeah, I just wanted to see. I'm pretty sure. I thought that this was not the translation of Ohel, in Stan, like the most direct translation. Oh, I can't do this. I don't want Jewish music. Good news is I'm taking off my Thursday night shiur so that I can finally get my new laptop started and end these issues. All right, let's see here. Bereshis, okay, Yoshev Ohel Umikneh. Let's just see how Targum translates Ohel. That's Targum Yerushalmi.
Is that in the description for the cancel Thursday night shiur?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
Onkelos. Mashkinin. Okay, so it is the standard translation. Okay, so we can't read too much into it. And the tent. The tent of the upright. Oh, sorry. The tent. This is the same. This is just the same. Okay, it's the same. Mashkina disriti mafriach. Okay, fine. All right, so we have very little to go off of in terms of the targumim. Our scroll. I think these are pretty straightforward. The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the just will blossom. I find it interesting that they translate it as just. Usually they translate it as upright. Refer says. All right, this is also weird. I don't think Refer generally translates Russia as lawless man. The lawless man's house shall not escape destruction. So he's learning Yishamed not will be destroyed in the sense of just the immediate, but is destined to be destroyed, kind of. But I think that's the implication.
Well, the Yishamed is future tense, huh?
Yeah, it's future passive, I guess, will be destroyed. But the tent of the upright will always produce blossoms. I also don't know. I mean, it could be that Yifrach. I think will produce blossoms is better. I think Yifrach means it will blossom. Yafriach means it will cause blossoms. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say will blossom, and then literally will produce blossoms. That's what I'm guessing he's going off
And
of.
is that the same for destroyed? Like produce
No.
destruction?
Yeah, that'd be nice though. Alter says the house of the wicked will be destroyed and the tent of the upright will flourish, right? So flourish comes to the word flower, right? That's actually I'll put this also. Will flourish or blossom / will produce blossoms. Okay, fine. So let's delete these. Let's delete this. And let's move this. And yeah, okay. So there should not be that many questions, right? And they should all be basic. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do like all the opposites. So in what way is Isha made opposite Yafriach? And what ways are houses and tents opposite?
Right. So house versus tent, Russia versus Yashar, not Tzaddik, right? Bias versus Ohel, and Yafriach versus Yishamed. Oh, sorry, versus Yafriach. Versus Yishamed. Right, especially because the second half is not, second half seems to be, well, okay. If Yafriach means to produce blossoms, then the second half is metaphorical and the first half is literal. If Yafriach is like Alter is translating it, that it just means to flourish, then they could both be literal. Yeah, Ariel? Yeah, okay, good.
Also, kind of on the last one as well.
Yeah.
The flourishing can be both causing or producing as well as in of itself, whereas destroying is just
right. So I'll clarify that here. Is Yafriach versus Yishamed, either in terms of metaphor versus literal, or I guess causative versus like whatever the other opposite is, versus like let's see,
effect or like result.
Yeah, producing effects versus just like receiving effects. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, I would ask what's the relationship between a house and destruction and the tent
Right.
and flourishing.
Okay, good. What is the relationship between a house and destruction? And I also don't know whether Yishamed is used. I mean, I think of Yishamed as being used about people, or like, especially because we call, I mean, I don't know if this is in biblical Hebrew, but in rabbinic Hebrew, we call it shmad, is a persecution to like kill people. I don't know. Yishamed, Tisham. I have to look at and see in Tanakh whether Yishamed is used for like structures or how common that is. And between tent and flourish. And
to combat RLs seems obvious.
Yeah.
Within these relationships, that doesn't seem intuitive. And a house seems to be something that is going to be secure.
Right.
And a tent seems like something that's going to get wiped out pretty quickly.
Okay, right. Okay, good.
So,
yeah. So what is let's see, I'm gonna actually put this as an alternative.
Can I
Alternative.
Before I combat that, can I understand? What do you mean by that?
Well, let me write it out, and then if it's different, then Sean can elaborate here. So alternatively, this is not intuitive, right? Intuitive. Houses usually don't get destroyed because they are made to be permanent, and tents usually do get destroyed because they are temporary by design. Right. There's your answer. Yeah, there's your approach. Yeah, Zach.
Another interesting thing is that both Rishaim and Yesharim are plural, and
right.
But both house and tent are singular.
Okay, yeah, that is a stylistic question. So is there any significance to the fact that bias and ohel are singular, whereas Rishaim, Yesharim, Yesharim, typing, the old keyboard's worn out. Yesharim are plural. Yeah. Ariel?
Yeah, what's the what's the subject of the pasuk?
Yeah.
And like the scenario?
What is the subject of this pasuk? What is the practical application? Who is the audience? Also, I wanted to note, Beis Rishaim Yishamed, V'ol Yisharim Yafriach. So I just a very basic question here. Well, we didn't. I think we have to ask this basic question. What do bias and ohel mean? And ohel mean? Hold on. Mean in this context, and usually I think the reason why we need to ask this in a different way is because
No, I like that question actually.
Yeah.
Sparked an idea.
Okay, good. Bias usually means, can mean a physical house, a household, a dynasty, but the fact that it's being compared with ohel seems to limit it. Like, I don't think we use ohel as a dynasty, for example, and I don't even think we use ohel as a household. So bias might mean something different here than it means in other places. Similarly, we need to ask,
Did we ask our definition question?
how does this happen? No, we didn't ask our definition question. You mean for Yashar and Russia? Yeah. So
oh, you kind of implied it with what's the difference, with the contrast between Russia and Yashar, but
yeah, what are the definitions of Russia? I'm gonna give up on this. Russia and Yashar in this context. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got more questions than I expected.
a lot of them were basics.
Yeah, but this is a good puzzle to pick for. I mean, I didn't know the idea yet, but it seems to be a very good pick for teaching Mishlei methodology. Yeah.
You scroll down to the lower questions.
I'll just put them in the chat. There and there. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Ariel, what do you got?
Well, I have an initial approach with just this initial idea of
Sure.
bias and ohel, and I don't know the definition of Yashar yet, but like it's interesting how like the bias is focused on the Rishon, and like bias like implies of like of a permanent structure.
Right.
Now it's like a permanent structure, and like it's almost like the pasuk is conveying to you that like it doesn't matter how strong you build this house, when like the people living in it will determine whether or not it will fall or not. Like the permanence, the quality of the house will make a difference if you have Rishon in it.
Right.
Because the Rishon, by nature are going to do whatever crazy things, and they're just going to just destroy the house.
Right.
So don't feel secure,
Okay.
in that location.
I think that's a good approach to the first half, and I'll just add to that regarding the question of Sean's question about it's counterintuitive. It is not saying that the bias will deteriorate, which would be like a natural, like in terms of like the bias does have its own independent standing power, but Yishamed is like someone will destroy it, so it's gonna, so somehow, like you said, like the actions of the Rishayim are gonna bring about an external destruction.
And
that's a question we didn't ask.
Yeah.
Which is how is
this gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
I did ask that.
Yeah.
How does this happen? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And and like the second half seems a little simple now once we did the first half. There's like the ohel is this temporary structure, and Yisharim, like Avram Avinu, he had an ohel, but it flourished, because of the man who was in the ohel, he really, flourished in that.
Right. So,
but I don't know.
Okay, so I'm gonna just get the outline of this idea here. I might be mixing in my own take on your idea, but So even though a house is a permanent structure, the decisions of the wicked in the house will like bring about destruction from without or from within, In other words, like the permanence of their house like doesn't matter because the real determinant is the conduct of the people. Okay. Similarly, a tent is a temporary structure, but the fact that it is temporary has no bearing on the like, flourishing. I'm going to go with flourishing here. Flourishing of the people within and their ability to cause others to flourish, right? Like the fact that someone made a comment to me once. Is there a reason I should not have this on here? Yeah, I won't record it just in case. The point is that the duration of the institution itself is not a determinant or not an indicator of its success. You can have like a house of Rishaim that the house lasts for a long time, but because of the activities of the Russia, it just attracts destructiveness. And then you could have an ohel, like I was saying, like Avraham Avinu's tent or Volozhin yeshiva that like did not last for a very long time, but had like tremendous success and caused others to succeed.
So are you asking a question?
No, I'm elaborating on your idea.
It's just because there's a question there.
What's the question?
Meaning, like, the question is, meaning if an ohel yisham yafrech will flourish, so what do we mean by flourishing? Do we mean?
So I thought that's what you're saying. I thought you're saying that the activities that the Yashar does and the way of life that they promote will bring about like the
ideas. It's like the lifestyle.
The lifestyle, yeah, right,
Okay,
right,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple of additions to this idea.
Sure.
That I think the success of a house is based on its durability, and
You're talking about like physical house?
A physical house, yeah. What the Russia does basically takes a wrecking ball to his house.
Right, that's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the with a tent, it's supposed to collapse every now and then,
Right.
Yeah, just so that you can, and then you set it up somewhere else.
Right.
So like
that's interesting also. That's a different interesting quality of tent, right? Yeah. Is that the house is not designed to be built and dismantled and then rebuilt. But the yeah.
So I think a person looking at the Russia's house and the Yashar's tent would say, wow, like the Yashar's tent is much less durable against like a wrecking ball,
right.
Much as but then like it's like because it's not designed to it's not designed to do that, and then also the Russia is gonna hit himself with a wrecking ball.
Yeah, so I actually don't know whether this is an elaboration or if this is a different idea. So I'm going to write it as a different idea here, which is that a house is designed to be durable, but the Russia essentially like takes a wrecking ball to it. In contrast, a tent is made to be repeatedly like
Isaac saying that it was the Russia taking the wrecking ball to it, or are you saying that the Russia's house will be destroyed when a wrecking ball comes because it's brittle versus a Yashar's tent could be reset up?
I thought Isaac was saying that the Rishaim are going to cause destruction.
Yeah, not that they're going to intentionally destroy their house, but like it's kind of like look at like Newton's cradle where you pull back one end and it hits the ball on the other end, and then the ball comes back and hits it again. That's kind of the way the Russia's actions work, where they they do harmful actions to others, and then because of that they get harmful consequences.
Right. I think
so
I think that's good. The reason why I'm classifying this as a different idea is I think that that the quality that Ariel's idea was talking about was the permanence of the house and the temporariness of the tent, and Isaac is talking about the like resuscitability of the permanence, but the fact that once a house is destroyed, it's just like it doesn't reassemble by its nature. You have to like build a new house, whereas like the tent can come back.
So
This is almost like an idea of or related to an idea of like the Russia falls, just like the tzaddik falls 7 times and gets up, but the Russia has a downfall and then that's it.
So I like this like concept, but I guess the part that I want to understand is like the completion of this idea is like what's the blossoming here? Meaning like technically if it's just the Yashar's own actions, then he could have a house too and it should blossom. Or I guess I'm just wondering if there's a
right. Yeah, I think that does need to be developed a little bit more, but I like the emphasis. Yeah, Sean.
Different approach. So
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Just a comment on what Isaac was saying.
Yeah.
That in contrast, a tent is made to repeatedly dismantle and set up again.
Yeah.
Like I thought he was working with my idea, but
maybe, I mean, he did say start off that way.
Yeah. So that like just put that in there in my idea. It's like you can literally take on the tent and put it up anywhere. The Yashar will make an effect.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Isaac, do you have an idea for Yafriach? You might not be able to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I think it's like, I don't know. I was just kind of taking it as a generic word for success.
Right.
Right. Because, he will succeed because he's. It's kind of like also, I guess, another thing I was thinking is that, a person who's looking at, within Ariel's idea, the person who's looking at the fragility of a tent, is like, oh, it's not going to be able to survive if someone tries to destroy it. But the thing is, because of the Yeshua's behavior, no one is going to try to destroy it, which is why it's going to.
That's another thing also, right?
Yeah.
Right. And no one is going to like destroy it actively. Yeah. Okay, Zach, let's go with your approach next.
Okay, so before, just one more comment on yours and Ariel's thing. It kind of gave me like the thought that kind of came to mind was that almost the idea of like a house versus a tent is like a brand. It's like the determination of the success isn't how well recognized the brand is. That's a feature of some of its activities, but what's actually successful is their impact on people in the world.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, so that came to mind. Okay, so the idea that was coming to my mind was that this pasuk is talking about the journey or the pursuit of truth.
Okay.
And the contrast that kind of helps unpack that for me is the contrast between a tent and a yashar, because a tent is a very transient thing, meaning it can be there, it can be there. There's no like set place for it. Whereas a yashar is like, his quality is that he's like, on the straight and narrow, like he's predictable, so to speak, in his actions. And so like, it just seems like these are contrasting qualities between a yashar and a tent.
Okay.
And so a recent conversation came to mind where someone was talking to me about how sometimes it feels like uncomfortable, almost embarrassing to pursue truth, because you end up changing your position. That which you think is true tomorrow isn't the same as what you thought was true yesterday. And then people look at you and say like, oh, you're just this wishy-washy kind of person who was always thinking something different. Right. And kind of thing like that's like a difficult position to put yourself into.
Yeah.
And what kind of came to my mind and what we talked a bit about is that like a lot of the greatest thinkers and minds that we have records of, today actively reference their earlier works and say things like, I no longer hold this position to be true. I was wrong then. And so it's almost like a badge of a truth seeker is someone who is willing to recount and willing to change position, because not doing that is that you were just born with all of the truth at once and you don't need to learn anything, which is unlikely to be the case.
Right.
And so the feature of a truth seeker is that they change their position. And so here, it's basically saying that the the Russia is someone who takes a stance and doesn't leave that stance. They'll bend themselves back to keep that stance.
Yeah.
Whereas a Yashar, his position is going to stay is going to change, but he's a Yashar, meaning what he's doing is going to stay consistent. His values and what he's thinking is the same. It's his position that's changing. And that's the difference here between like a real truth seeker and a non-truth seeker.
Right.
And then the outcome is one, inevitably, he might hold his position for longer, but inevitably that position will be wrong.
Right.
And it will be very clear to everybody that that was a bad position to.
Okay, I really like this idea. I mean, it's a Derek Nisser idea, but it's very good. So I'm going to write it in my words, and you tell me if I'm getting anything wrong here. So the Yashar is, I'm going to start with the second half like you did, because I think it's better to lead with that. So the Yashar is a truth seeker, and truth seekers are have a certain internal consistency and integrity in their truth seeking. Okay, at first glance, tent is congruent with that sense of permanence, since tents are temporary. But that is exactly the point. Okay, tent is a mashal for, and I don't know exactly what to call this, but for the Yashar's, views or positions. What was that?
An intellectual position, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Views or positions. And because the Yashar seeks truth, he will be prepared to modify and dismantle his prior views. And that is the quality that will allow him to intellectually flourish. Okay. In contrast, the Russia, which is in this context the ideological thinker, okay, in quotes, right, will build a position which is inflexible, and which he will mistake that inflexibility for real substance and permanence. But that, I know it's a typo, but that very inflexibility is what will lead his ideology to be destroyed, right? When it doesn't evolve. Yeah. Okay. That's a really, really good Derek Nisser approach. Yeah. This is, I feel like, I have to do this. I have to read from Rav Pesach's essay. I'm not going to find it. Typing Pesach. Okay. Rebbe's. Okay. What is it called? Scientific and halachic? Scientific. Yeah. On scientific and halachic thought. I'm not going to read the whole essay, obviously, but the description that he has of the life cycle of a theory, I think really fits well with this, because it talks about both. So he says, okay, breakthrough, wait a minute. Yeah, let's start here. I mean, obviously you should read the whole essay, but breakthroughs are those theories that shift our thinking from the entrenched philosophy to a new one. This opens up new approaches to analyzing phenomena, avenues of inquiry previously unrealized, and indicates experiments not previously contemplated. It suggests new ways of looking at things and the unification of phenomena formerly regarded as distinct. It is a gate of knowledge, an opening to formerly hidden vistas and perspectives, and the beginning of a new intellectual environment. At the heart of a breakthrough is the ability to look at events or phenomena that present problems under the prevailing view and recognize the possibility that another view might make things yet simpler. Thus, we move from a particular case or set of problems to a breakthrough, which in turn leads to a new understanding about the other particular cases and eventually a new philosophy. I think this is a quote from the Einstein book, Evolution of Physics. Successful revolt against the accepted view results in unexpected and completely different developments, becoming a source of new philosophical aspects. This continues until problems reveal an inadequacy in the new philosophy and the process repeats. Now, this is the paragraph I wanted. Something interesting occurs near the end of a philosophic regime. the idea that was an intellectual boon to science at its inception, allowing for new freedoms of thought, can become in its decline an intellectual shackle, forcing every phenomenon to conform to its terms. To the conventional thinkers, it is no longer a tool of new insights and fresh ideas. Rather, it becomes an ideology of its own. The loyal rally around it and craft creative, if not brilliant, ways of fitting the unruly phenomena into the old terms, no matter how tenuous or far-fetched. Ironically, this is the opposite approach of the methodology that spawned the very idea they are defending. Whereas the original breakthrough started with a set of problems from which were derived a new universal, this method starts with the universal and insists on particular kinds of solutions which are in line with its philosophy. Eventually, a new breakthrough is needed to once again reduce the complexity created. So that's, I think, a description of what's interesting is you could have Zach's two personalities in the same person. You could start off being a yashar, but then get too attached to your own bias, and then the bias will bias you and cause you to, cram everything into it. Zach, you want to add your idea?
I think there's only like a half a thought left. It wasn't very significant to the idea. It was more just the contrast between destruction and flourishing, whereas like destruction is like at some point his established view will just not match up with reality. Spent so much time bending backwards to try to make it fit. Versus someone who's constantly tweaking and moving their tent. It will lead to like a continuous flourishing, not just for themselves but others, because others will see that and be able to build on it, and like true ideas beget more true ideas. And like another specific point about how like it seems like destruction was just like destruction for that one person, but flourishing seems like it's flourishing for them and flourishing potentially for others because it can cause flourishing, is that when I had this conversation with this person not too long ago about like the nature of like the truth seeker and how and how they recount their positions, one of his initial points was like, people look at that with like disdain, like, oh, you're just flip-flopping all over, like, what is this, lack of strength that you have to have a position? But I was like, in the long term, though, that's not really what it bears. Normally when you are genuinely honest, say, oh, I'm going to think about this, or I'm going to change my position, and people really see that you're involved in it because you're trying to get to the truth, ultimately their view becomes very positive. And they start to appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to think through something or to change the decision. And so it actually has a positive impact also on others, not just on your own.
All right, good. So Yafriach really does fit in really well. All right, I really, really like this idea. Okay, Sean, you're up.
Yeah, okay, so mine is fundamentally the same as Zach's.
Okay.
Although I'm going to focus more on the Rishon and the Yisharim in terms of exploring the idea, which is that the characteristic of a Rasha that I'm focusing on is the fact that the Rasha is completely self-oriented. Right? And so what it means to be self-oriented is that there's already an existence of self, and the entire focus is on preserving the self, which means that there's not going to be any development. And that's the purpose of a house. A house is purely focused on preserving and protecting what already exists. Whereas a tent is something which is designed to be something that's flexible. It's designed to be something that moves around and can go to different locations and is able to adapt and develop in relationship to the things that are around it. And so it's a recognition that the way in which I'm going to be successful and the way in which I'm going to go beyond myself is being able to move and be flexible towards the situations that are different and beyond my comfort zone and beyond my horizons. It's like an explorer mentality versus a preserver mentality.
Right.
And so if you are just focusing on preserving, then you're always going to be fighting a battle against nature. Nature is constantly going to be, wearing away at the things that you have. And eventually just focusing on self-preservation is going to result in a loss of the thing that you're trying to preserve. Whereas if you abandon self-preservation and you're more focused on development, then you're actually going to be beating the decay of time.
Okay, all right, that is a good explanation of the muscle also. Okay, so let me try to get this down. So Sean's idea is a house is an edifice dedicated to self preservation. Okay, and the nature of the Russia's the Russia's type of self-preservation, because obviously there are good types of self-preservation, but the Russia's type of stop typing. Can I even scroll? Okay, I can scroll. Why is it not letting me type? Can I save? Oop. Okay, there we go.
I thought you lost that
Yeah,
for a second.
Russia's
I
type
had a
of
heart attack.
self-preservation is one that is resistant to all change and development and real development. Yeah. Okay. So I'll contrast that with in contrast, the reason why a tent is temporary is because it is serving different evolving different and evolving needs outside of the self, right? And is therefore very adaptable. I'm missing a step. What am I missing?
Yeah. So the purpose then of the tent is to enable the person to explore and develop through new and enriching experiences.
Yeah.
Which are, beyond where the person is currently situated.
Okay. This is
reacting to contextual things, meaning like just like a tent, you might move because of weather, better pastures, right. You'll react to things around you.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking also just in terms of the people who use tents. I mean, or used tents in the olden days. Shepherds, farmers, cowboys. Like they're all setting up these temporary structures because they're serving like a constantly changing and constantly moving thing outside of themselves.
And they're constantly on the frontier.
Right.
Meaning they're not people who settle are people who are satisfied with where they're at and have given up on further development. A person who has a temporary structure is somebody who is, very similar to Zach, is somebody who is willing to uproot themselves from where they're currently at to move to the next level.
Yeah. Okay, good. Whereas house builder is someone who is content where they are. Okay, good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Yitzi?
Just a different approach to that.
Sure.
So I kind of see a house and a tent as they're places that we take our security into, live a good life. But the truth is functionally they're really the same because they both, it's like I think like sukkah like provides,
the essence there, shelter,
shelter, right. So if you're taking security in that, then it's going to produce that's not where the real security comes from. The real security comes from living a good life. Right.
That's a good common quality. I'm just going to get this first part down. You spell it with a Z or an S?
ZY.
ZY. Oh yeah. So even though a house and a tent are different, they are fundamentally the same shelter providers. The difference, one major difference is that we take greater security in a house, whereas we have no like delusional security in a tent. Right? Yeah. So like for example, like sukkah reminds us that our real security is not in the physical structure, but in God. Yeah. All right. I think that's a good starting off point for a different approach. I think that approach touches on something that is, I don't think we've talked about shelter per se in these ideas, even though they're, obviously they're related. Yeah, Zach?
So yeah, interesting. Actually, I had another footnote thought, but it was based off of the same observation that you just made, is that tents and houses seem to be fundamentally or categorically similar, and that we wouldn't necessarily say that the opposite of a house is a tent.
Right.
maybe the opposite of the house is homelessness or not having a home at all.
Right.
And so kind of the footnote idea to the idea of seeking truth that kind of came from that observation is that, when we're trying to seek truth, we do need to be flexible, but there's a certain amount of being attached to our ideas that are necessary. So if a person has a thought and someone comes to challenge it, or their own observations or thought comes to challenge it, if there's zero flexibility, then yeah, they'll eventually get destroyed, as like the Russia. But
Yeah.
they just change position immediately. And like as if they don't even have a tent, they're just going wherever.
Yeah.
Then that's also potentially a failing quality of a truth seeker, meaning there needs to be enough attachment that you'll take down your idea, but you'll do it with effort. You'll take down the legs and the strings, and you'll build up an idea slowly as well. So
Yeah.
there's substance, it's just not inflexible.
That's good. Yeah, I mean that corresponds with what Rabbi Moskowitz would always say, which is that you should have 100% conviction in the conclusions of your mind, but intellectual honesty and humility to retract when shown that you're making a mistake or that it's incomplete. So like that 100% conviction is what you're talking about there, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So let's review what we have here, and then we'll do the meforshim tomorrow. Bleed editor. So we have Ariel's idea, which is in the derech nigle, that whatever it is that the Russia builds up, the Russia is just going to end up destroying. Like even if the thing he built is by its own momentum permanent, the Russia is just self-destructive in whatever he does, and it's only an amount of time before either he destroys it or he triggers other people to destroy it. And the yashar, even if what he's building is not by its nature permanent, he makes decisions and engages with the world around him in a way that will constantly result in his flourishing and the flourishing of other people. So that is the pshat there. And I think this does pair well with what Isaac is saying, in terms of I like the wrecking ball mushal, but the incorporating the idea of the nature of the tent is to be set up and taken down. Okay. Then Zach's idea is that bias and ohel are a metaphor for the intellectual positions or views that you take, and the yashar has that flexibility and adaptability, just like a tent dweller does, and that will cause him to flourish and cause other people to flourish, that mentality, whereas the Russia clings to his views, and that inflexibility is going to bring about the destruction or the disproof or the whatever of those views, the death of those theories. And then Sean is talking about the idea of how the house is used and how the tent is used, that the house is made for people who just want to stay put wherever they are and protect themselves and preserve what they have, whereas the yashar is trying to constantly be on the frontier and constantly try to engage in developing himself or his environment or himself through his environment, and that's what necessitates the constant moving around, and then that's going to lead to greater success and flourishing. And then Yitzi started developing an idea about the nature of both of them provide security. The house and the tent provide security, but the house creates an illusion of ultimate security, whereas there's no illusions in the tent.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
When you translate dark nigla versus dark nister, is it literal versus like internal?
So my theory about nigla versus nister is nigla is talking about success in the physical world, and nister is talking about success in the the world of perfection.
So not metaphorical.
Not necessarily metaphorical. You could have a metaphorical interpretation that's still in the nigla. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming, Zach. I always like it when you grace us with your presence and your ideas. But yeah, it's good to have you back. Okay. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Would you be able to